Okay, so we're recording. You were just saying, okay, so first of all, we've been working together for a long time.
Yeah, a long time.
And not everything that we do is really about eating, overeating, eating disorders, body image. A lot of the stuff we talk about is family issues, work issues, life perception, right? And how you're dealing with your work and life stress and all sorts of stuff, right?
Right.
Especially your dad in particular. But,
Right.
since we've talked, it's been a couple weeks, we've been really focused in on this work stress because what you're connecting the dots to is, how your job, you've kind of taken over a family farm, right?
Yep.
And your dad, who started it, is still very much involved, but he's kind of a bull in a china shop.
Yep.
And so you've always had to clean the mess up for him, and you're fatiguing. And you now have symptoms of that fatigue with rheumatoid arthritis, right?
Right.
So when we started, we first started talking a few years ago, right? After Weight Loss Apocalypse was published, is that?
Yeah. Yep. And we spent a little time together, and then it was probably 3 years, and I called you back.
Yeah, because during that 3-year period of time, you kind of went anorexic, right?
Yeah, I did a lot of rounds of HCG.
Yeah, and you got up on a pedestal of your health righteousness, and then it kind of came back to haunt you in terms of the misery of the binging on the downside of it, right?
Yes.
The shame side of that failure. And so the course of the past year and a half, we've really worked consistently on not just the body image stuff, but the relationship issues and life perception. So you've gone a long time without binging. Like, when was the last time you full-fledged binged?
I can't even remember.
It's like right when we first started working together. Like this last time, about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, and I still had some binges when we were first working together,
Mm-hmm.
but it's probably been a year since I've been, which is pretty amazing.
It is amazing, especially since there's no restriction or, well, it's not amazing when you hear it that way. It's like, well, no, duh, if there's no restriction, you're not going to binge.
Right.
But you still have these connections with food as a way to cope.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's where I am with food now, it's an avoidance behavior.
Yeah, like distraction.
Right, yeah, it's a distraction. Just like my crazy knitting was a distraction for a while.
Oh, that was a funny conversation. That was so funny when we talked about that because I had that vision of you just being like a mad knitter. And you were like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Excessively doing 50 ads. Okay, so I had said, but while I was preparing to record this, I said, I need you to really think about this, that you've connected, what was the question? How did I frame up?
Why am I using food as a solution?
Got it. Oh, we know that food it doesn't make sense. You're under stress around work and whatever, because you're in harvesting right now. There's that. That's a whole different level of stress.
Yeah.
Kind of exciting though, right? It's exciting and stressful.
Yeah.
But you've got your dad, and your mom is actually having dementia, and there's some real stressful situations between your dad not being helpful with her, saying you should do it while you're still running this business, helping with your granddaughter and knitting.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, right? There's a lot of drama and chaos going around, and you're always the one that's supposed to rescue everything, right? You're supposed to be the rescuer. Remember, you're supposed to clean up after the bull in the china shop and make it look like there's no bull. The bull doesn't exist.
Right.
right? And so you were saying, I've noticed I'm still eating, I'm overeating, and I don't like it, right? Not because you think, well, and so my next question was, so clearly food does not make sense. Why would someone eat as a solution for your mother? You know, the conversations of putting her at home or getting her someone. What does food have to do with any of that, right? So it doesn't make sense to go to food. But there is a position that it does make sense for, where food makes sense, right? So even with, like you said, well, I'm using it to distract. Why would you use food to distract? Why would food be the option for distraction? What is it about food that makes it a solution for that? So I'm taking it a little deeper. Like you're now ask the question again, why would food be a solution for distraction? How is food a good solution for that?
It's not a good solution.
Well, it doesn't make any sense. So let's keep on going. What does it make sense for?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
Well, there is a sense in it. It makes sense for someone who feels deprived.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is a conversation you and I have had a lot, and I think this is a good example for you to look at. Oh, I was a victim. Oh, I'm feeling like I have more than I can handle, and I'm pissed about it. So usually when someone is using a form of compensation, that's what that is. Why are you compensating yourself with food? There is a deservingness. So go into the conversation that you had with yourself while you're eating, because there isn't a diet that we're imposing. So there is no bad food. There is no, you should be eating this, you shouldn't be eating that. But there is this idea of letting the body manage. So there is a boundary. It's just let the body tell you when to eat, and you're to follow it. Right?
Right.
So when you were overeating, you knew consciously, it was conscious that you were going beyond those boundaries. And so there was probably a part of you that felt like you were doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But how did you get past that to where you're like okay with it? Because their goal is to create equilibrium. You know what I mean by equilibrium? It means that you're trying to, so if you feel negative about it, you're going to do, the way we do it is by creating something that makes it seem justified. Because if it's justified, this might be where you're not necessarily conscious. You're just doing it. But there is a justification around why. That makes it seem it's a good solution.
Because it tastes good and I've been victimized, so I deserve it.
So go into the victimization. Yeah, the deservingness of it. Would you say that rings true for you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Because I want to make sure I'm saying all this. I don't want you to just go, okay, yeah, that's right. I want you to actually go and think about it and connect dots. Because if it isn't right, then we need to figure out what it is. So.
No, absolutely. I feel like I deserve it.
And that deservingness comes from what?
From putting myself in a victim position.
And you're a victim because I'm being asked to do too much?
Yeah, that was what was going through my head, is that I'm overwhelmed with the amount of stuff I'm being asked to do.
Okay, so you're overwhelmed. And do you carry any resentment? Because that would be a good, that would promote the victim. Resentment is victimization, and this is unfair. I shouldn't have to do this. I resent that I have all of this work to do. This is the downside of playing the rescuer role in a codependent drama triangle. Which we've known. You're the rescuer for your dad. You've played the role. You play the role. You've been successful at that role. And now people expect you to do that role. Right? It's kind of like you guys had a meeting and you thought you were having a heart attack, but they wouldn't have the meeting without you.
Right.
Like, why can't they just have the meeting without you? What is it? You know, so there's an enabling aspect of your role that you have accepted, that you know, when we could look at the history and say, well, I accepted it before because I got kind of a sense of value from it. Like, look at me, I am hot shit, I'm amazing, I can handle it. And I don't know if that was part of it or if it was really just like, I got to prove myself to my own father.
I think I like to be, to feel needed and wanted.
Yeah. Did you ever in any way get pride in thinking that, was there any pride in it? In your performance? To where it gave you a sense of specialness?
I think it gave me a feeling of accomplishment.
Did that accomplishment give you a sense of specialness in any way? I want to ask just to see if there's an inflated pride in it, and a narcissistic inflated pride, to where you're like, that's your dad. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because he's pretty inflated he's really proud of his success and promotes himself, doesn't he, because of it?
Right. Yeah.
That's what I meant. Like, look at me, I'm hot shit. You guys are sucky.
Yeah, like he sends pictures of his stuff to people.
Dick pics?
And every time he does it, I'm
Hold on.
like,
He sends pictures of his stuff. Are you talking about like his penis?
Like his motorcycle.
Oh, okay. Got his motorcycle, which is kind of like a dick pic.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like an extension of his dick in a pic. That's funny. Yeah, okay. So he wants to show, he's like, I'm successful. Yes, like show and tell 24/7. Okay, right. So have you taken in on any of that? In terms of your ability to handle him? Because that's the role you've been taking, right? It's the rescuer to handle. Like you said the last time we talked a couple weeks ago, that he causes all these issues, and you come in and clean up the mess, making sure people are okay. Make sure, so you're constantly doing that, right?
Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with it?
Yeah. And I think because I've been working really hard to not clean up his messes and not try to make people think that he's not a bad person, and trying to be that buffer between him and other people, because I've been trying to step away from that. It's hard. There's that it's like a contradiction to what I spent my life doing, and now I'm trying to back away from that, and it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let people see him for what he is.
Yeah. And why don't you just come out of the closet and tell him that he's crazy? Why don't you just tell these people he's kind of an asshole? He's like an old crotchety asshole.
And I have been, and I feel like I'm betraying him when I do that.
Okay, see, this is the victim position. So as if he's entitled to you cleaning up after his mess. So the truth, it's like you're lying for him.
Yeah.
Now, there's always something the rescuer is going to get out of it, right? You get a lot out of it. You get a job. You get success. You get control, or whatever you're getting out of it, right? You get peace. You know, would he have been as successful if he didn't have someone like you and your mother? I'm assuming she played this role.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly cleaning up and to be basically you're a slave to this asshole, right? Your dad's an asshole and you're his slave.
Yeah.
So he's never really been held responsible for how shitty his behavior is, ever.
Right.
So now he's 80 years old, and what do you, I mean, that's part of the problem too, is it's not like he's going to go, oh, maybe I shouldn't be abusive. Maybe I shouldn't be an abusive dick.
You know, he called me last night and he said, can you call your mom? She's mad at me and now she won't go to this meeting with me. And I said, why do you have to go to the meeting? Well, it was an estate meeting. I said, your estate's done. Why do you have to go to the meeting? Well, I need another opinion. So call your mom and talk her into going with me. Like, okay. So I called mom, talked to her for a minute, and I said, hey, you going to that meeting tonight? She said, nope, I'm pissed at him. I said, okay, good for you.
Yeah, supporting her, being like, yeah, he's kind of a dick.
Yeah.
He should just go by himself. There's been no consequences. So see how he comes to you to come to his rescue? So he's an asshole and he wants you to come to his rescue.
Yeah, I mean,
so you're supplying him kindness that he doesn't exist with.
Right.
And you've got to do it with people who are have been abused. So you're going to help abused people to support the abuser. That's what a rescuer really is, right?
Yeah.
So, can you see why it's out of loyalty? It could be just being out of loyalty. But if you stop doing stuff for him, do you think in any way he can't handle the criticism that he's going to get?
He can't handle it.
Well, do you think it's because he's been enabled? He's been enabled and has never really had to deal with that type of criticism because he's had this bowl in a china shop. And someone has always said, he's not a bowl. Look, we fixed the china. I resupplied all the china and we cleaned it up. And you're the one who's having signs of extreme fatigue. Because you're the one who's having to clean it up for him. He's never really had to have the humility to admit he's done something wrong or to recognize this is not okay. You know, you can't treat people this way. You'll lose employees. He's never really had to have the confrontation of it. You know, so how do you do this smoothly with an 80-year-old who won't get out of the business? You know, how are you going to exit? You know, in 20 years from now, you're going to look back and you're going to go, that was ugly. Is there a way to make it not ugly when you have someone the way he is? I mean, this is where you're going to need to just end it with him. That might be, there's a variety of ways to do this. So if you're dealing with someone who's like that, often if you give them power to exit, they're going to cause damage all the way out. They'll take the business down with them. There's that scenario.
And I think that's what he wants to do. Take the business down with him.
Yeah. So
that he was the only one that can handle it, and the rest of us are inept.
Yeah. So have you had the conversation of, Dad, what you going to do when you die?
Yes. He's put us in a position in Harvest right now where my husband and son are, he's left this load on them because I asked him 2 months ago, what are we going to do for Harvest? You are 79, you're 80 years old. What are we going to do for Harvest? I can still harvest. We don't need anybody. And we're in a real stressful, uncomfortable situation right now. And I was just thinking, I've tried to make his exit not messy, but it's going to just be messy.
Yeah, that's why it's like, how can you just shut it off quickly? Let's go back to your eating issues.
Uh-huh.
So I have a feeling there's resent here. I could be wrong. Overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed, but you don't in any way resent that you are having to do all this work for when it doesn't have to be this way.
I have a lot of resentment for what's been going on. I do.
So why would then food, this really brings me back down to your body image stuff, but there is sense in why you would go to food, and why is that?
Because it's easy.
Well, yeah, it's something, but why would you do that? Knowing that it's harming the body. Because you know what you're doing when you're doing it.
Yeah, I know. Like when I know before I put that last bite in my mouth, I'm like, this one's going to put me over the edge and make me uncomfortable.
If there's something, are you getting something out of that where you're gratified? It's gratifying. And I like it. Is there something you're getting out of it?
Control.
Well, sure, but you're actually getting paid. You feel like you're getting paid, but it's, you know, when you say it's going to push it over the edge, you're going to physical discomfort.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to harm my body, and I'm going to harm it, and I'm going to feel the harm. Is there in any way when you're in that space gratification from that harm?
I think so.
Okay. Yes, it does make sense to me. It's like, it's kind of like saying he's hurting me and I'm going to prove it. So there's probably a sense of blame.
Yes.
Did I hit it? No?
I'm fat and it's
his fault.
Because I had to overeat because
God,
he was mean.
Yes, and is that not like 3-year-old mentality? Like 3 to 5 years old?
God.
I'm going to break my toy. So he'll know I'm upset. So I'm going to break it. And he made me do it. He made me do it. He made me do it.
That is so fucked up.
It's just juvenile, emotional awareness. And when it comes to your dad, can you see why you're stuck there?
Yeah.
Because you're not willing to change. So how can you progress out of this role? You're stuck at the age you took the role. I don't know how old you were.
20.
How about with your mother?
Earlier than that.
I was going to say, this is much earlier than that, because you probably took this type of thinking with your father and on your mother's side. It could have been on your mother's side. I don't know. Because you saw your mom was in this role for years, right?
Yeah, watching him squeeze her arm to see how fat it was.
Yeah, but in the role of like the business side, she wasn't running the business, but she was probably in the role of cleaning up the mess. I mean, who kept the business together when you weren't doing it, when you weren't the glue?
My mom. Yeah.
Okay, so you, in some ways, you probably tried to help her.
Yeah.
And so you became, that role probably started much earlier.
Yeah.
The resentment, how old were you when you started to resent it? Where it was punishing. He did this to me.
Oh, it's like probably from the beginning. I remember going home to my husband because I got married when I was 20. And I remember going home to my husband and just crying and telling him what an asshole my dad was that day and what he did to people and what he said. And
so that couldn't have been your first time in that position, though.
No, I'm sure. I'm sure it was earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I was helping with things in high school.
Yeah, did your mom open up and did you take sides? Like, my dad's such a dick.
Oh, yeah.
Look, so it started earlier than 20s. Yeah. Either way, you know,
my mom would get mad and
it's just
leave and we'd have to go find her.
and try to make things better for your dad. So you were positioned then to work for your dad, even though you knew he was a dick.
Right. Yeah.
So this eating your food as a way of like punishing him.
Yeah. Yep.
So do you see why it's like, why does food make sense? Why does food make sense?
Because it's my way of getting even with him.
Yeah. Which is amazing, because does it really affect him?
No, it doesn't. Unless I died because I ate too much. Then it would affect him.
Well, yes, and your child and your husband and, you know, but it is a form of mutilation. It's like self-mutilation, but you're doing it as if it's going to actually benefit this relationship. Like, what is it doing? That's why you get benefit from it. That's why it feels good. It's like, you know what? I'm going to eat this. You know, like it's going to hurt him, as if he's going to feel sorry for what he's done. See, I'm big and fat and you made me this way. It really, really comes down to a sense of powerlessness in this relationship. And so what you're doing is like, it's obviously childish, but nonetheless, it is what it is. It's a way for you to retaliate or to feel like you're doing something to protect yourself. But it's like actually self-harm. The attachment to that self-harm is that he will feel bad about it.
But he doesn't.
Yeah, I'm like, it's a way to be passive aggressive, a manipulative passive aggressiveness, where he clearly doesn't give a shit. He's not going to go and go, oh my God, I'm so sorry, it's so mean to you. Like, is that what you want? But what you're seeking is for him to come do that. It's a weird sense of wanting someone to feel sorry for what they've done, even though you're the one doing it, is the idea that it'll be better if they feel bad. If they feel bad, everything will be better. Well, he clearly doesn't have that sense of badness. So why are you trying to you're efforting subconsciously to try to create balance in this relationship, that if he feels bad, he won't do this anymore. Well, you're hurting yourself with this it's not conscious, maybe it is now. I'm going to hurt him through hurting me. And no, he doesn't feel bad. He's not going to come in and feel bad. And I wonder if it is a way to destroy your health to blame him. Even though the health of the body that you're testing, right? Because your body's clearly been handling it. It just now has rheumatoid arthritis. You have a significant amount of inflammation caused from the stress, caused from this dysfunctional relationship. And so if he's never going to change, so the thing is this, if you knew, go back to the moment you're eating and going into pain to punish other people. If you were consciously aware that they are never going to change. So go into accepting that. Because I think that, don't you agree that the only reason you would do that is if you believed unconsciously that it was going to have a positive outcome?
Yeah.
I know it sounds super crazy when you're talking about it consciously, but unconsciously it's like this weird childish idea that if I break my toy, he'll feel bad.
Yep.
In reality, people just look at people like that and go, and yeah, I'm going to go away now. You know, does nothing. Break my toy. So, you know, if a child, let's just look at it from that child's perspective. No one's watching, no one cares, and no one's going to play with you. Would you still do it?
No, because it's useless.
Right? So the direction I'm heading with you in your thought process around it is that He doesn't care. No one really cares what you're doing. And it does nothing.
Yep.
And he'll never change. So the illusion might be unconsciously that if I break myself, he'll feel bad and I have him to blame. I will punish him. But he doesn't just go into the fact that he doesn't see it. He doesn't even know what you're doing, and he will never change.
Yep.
So now tell me what it feels like to then eat that way. Again, no one cares. No one sees it. He doesn't care. He's never going to care. He will never, ever, ever care. He will think that you just have a terrible sense of self-control.
Yeah, there's no desire to eat that way.
Because you don't get anything out of it. It's like, oh,
yeah.
Well, it just took the wind out of your sail.
Yeah.
Why would I do that then? Go into the idea that your dad is retarded. Literally.
Yeah.
Would you still do that?
No.
Because he's not capable, right? So
Right.
with that type of mental, clearly it's not intellectual. It's everything else is significantly impaired. He is super impaired, disabled emotionally. So whatever you're doing is just like, it's like trying to argue with someone who is impaired.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of makes you think about what you've been doing. Like, really? I've been trying to manipulate and hurt myself to try to get back at someone who doesn't even have a clue.
Yeah, that's a great analogy or great visual.
Well, because you realize that, there's nothing you can do with someone who's has that type of impairment, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you wouldn't even take this person serious.
Yep.
He's impaired. Imagine how you would manage him if there was a name for the impairment.
I wouldn't try to manipulate him.
No, and the other thing is you would tell everybody, I just want you to know that he has this. So when he's this way, just smile and nod.
Yeah.
Problem is when you give someone with this type of impairment a credibility of full consciousness, is all of a sudden we all must suck. We have to fix what's going on, and because he's so credible, and you've got to remove the credibility. He has been put on a pedestal. And that's why you're doing this, You're trying to convince a superior person that they're mean people, So you've put him on a pedestal. When in reality, he is impaired, significant impairment emotionally. He is psychologically disabled, but yet has been treated as if he is, superhuman standard of excellence.
This makes so much sense. And every time we uncover this stuff, I'm like, why couldn't I see that?
I don't know. Sometimes I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that when we are uncomfortable, our brain isn't naturally wired to say, let's go into the discomfort and let's just feel it. Let's just snuggle into how shitty this feels. Like, snuggle in. Right? And that's what I'm doing. I'm like, we're going to go down. What's the point of food? What's the point of food? We just kept on layering it down. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm trying to numb myself. That doesn't make sense. Just keep on going down because there's somewhere it makes sense because if I have physical problems, now do you see the sense? Like, do you remember me saying there is a position where we'll go, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Food serves as a weapon to hurt myself and blame it on him. It's like a visible thing I can say he's destroying. And it's me.
Yeah.
He's destroying me with this last bite, that fucker.
Yep.
I'm glad you're laughing. Because it is kind of funny.
It is. It's pretty hilarious. I just had a vision of a cartoon strip of me eating that last bite because I'm going to get even with him.
Asshole. And look what he did to my body. Look what he's done. And all because you're trying to get him to play nice. And it's like you think you can negotiate with this guy. That's why I'm taking you to the area of it's not possible. You're wasting the body. And you're hurting an arbitrary life gift that has been given to you. You're hurting that.
Yeah.
I want you to go through like death. Let's imagine the other day you were having a heart attack.
Yeah, because I thought I was.
Well, and you were describing it. I was like, oh, that sounds like you need to get your arteries checked. I'm going to just say it on a side note. You need to go get checked.
Yeah.
Have you had that done?
Not for a long time.
I would go get it done. Just go get it done. Okay. On a side note, that is something I'm going to encourage you to do as soon as you can. So with that said, let's just imagine you did have a heart attack and you died. Let's talk about the exit, knowing how this has happened.
That would have been the stupidest death ever.
Right? Fuck you, Dad! I'm out of here!
Yep.
In your martyrdom. She was a martyr.
Now I see my tombstone.
The martyr. Her father made her eat. Made her because he was such a jerk. Made her this way. And he gave her a heart attack.
No.
And everything.
But that's what he does to me, Robin.
No, well, I'm not surprised to hear that. I'm sure people listening are like, he did that to you. Well, of course. You are part of the victim triangle. You're part of the drama triangle.
But the other way around, every time in the past I tried to talk to him about these issues, he grabs his heart and says, I can't talk about this. Bothering my heart. He literally does that to me.
And you grab your fat. You grab your arthritis. Look!
God.
Fuck you.
What a beautiful relationship we have.
Oh, it's so loving. Oh, God. You know, I've had clients in this state of mind attempt suicide.
Yeah.
And I'm not laughing at this because I always ask, because some people are like, yeah, I've had an attempted suicide. And I'm like, oh, well, tell me about it. Because they're like, well, I was really angry at my husband and I was so pissed. And so I was like, you know what? Screw him. I ate an entire bottle of pills. And they do it. Do you think they're really trying to commit suicide?
No, they just want attention because I've done
They're trying to retaliate. It's like a swarm.
Yep.
It's no different than what you're doing with that food. It's the same thing.
Yep.
I'm going to hurt them. I'm going to make them feel bad for what they are doing.
Yep.
And so you just destroyed your guts and your inner self and your body. You're now have medical bills of the yin yang, but they do it believing they know they're not going to die. They're going to go to the hospital. They take the pills, then they call the hospital and say, I just ate a bunch of pills. And then they go pump your stomach, right? And I've had a few that have done that.
Yeah, I ate 2 bottles of Tylenol. It's the sickest I've ever been.
So can you feel that this is similar?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, as you were telling me, I'm going to eat this and it's going to hurt him. I'm like, oh, she's trying to commit suicide, but it's not really. It's manipulative. I'm going to get back. I'm going to hurt him. I'm going to hurt him through killing yourself. And you're gambling because you really don't want to die. You're really not committing suicide. You're just trying to retaliate in an extreme way.
Yep.
So what's the solution here?
Honesty, bluntness.
Well, you've got to stop. You've got to end the self-harm.
Right.
That includes going in to clean up the broken china in the china shop.
Yep.
Like, why? Your retaliation really is to stop doing it for him. And to give him responsibility. He's going to have to, and you've got to be okay with the destruction that happens. And expect him to become victimized because you won't clean up his mess. Because he's been accustomed to it. He thinks that that's your role. Because you've done it for so long. So have empathy for the fact that he's going to feel abandoned.
Yep.
You know,
and that has already been happening because I've been trying to stop that behavior. He now calls my sister all the time.
Yeah. Well, and you know, you have to really also look at it comparatively. Compare you dying to and what that would do to you naturally just ending it. By can you just kick him out? Can you just say, we are voting, you are no longer have shares, you know, of this company?
I don't know.
Like, which one's worse? You dying of blaming him for your self-inflicted death?
Yeah.
Which one's going to be harder on him?
My death would be harder on him.
Of course. And the total destruction of that company, right?
Yeah.
In part because it's so reliant on you, but he's super controlling, right? So, anyways, so he wouldn't be able to do anything. If you left, he wouldn't recover. Because the reality would set in. If you died, reality would set in for him, and he wouldn't function well. Wouldn't you agree? Like, it would be debilitating for him.
Yeah, and that now I completely see my enablement. I mean, I saw it before, but now it just it was just crystal clear how much I have enabled him.
And participated. And equally. Like, this whole thing with you eating is like the same thing. It's like you're doing the same thing. Yeah. So no wonder you need your food, because it's a weapon against him for some reason, even though it hurts you.
Do you think because I watched my mom use that as a weapon against him through the years?
It could be that, but, you know, more so, I think it stems from you dieting for so long for him, for her, for your husband. You've always tried to be thin to impress these people and to gratify them and to be proud of you and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it has more to do with the severity of being manipulated, being controlled, but you doing it willfully. So it's actually giving them your willfully, and then being a slave to whatever you got to do to manage everything. I don't know if that made any sense at all.
Yeah, and then being resentful
about what you're doing, even though you willfully give them your free will. You don't have any free will because you gave it to them intentionally.
Yeah.
There's an intention around that then you become a slave to, doing what they need, And so you need to take responsibility. So it isn't just him taking responsibility, it's you taking responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah, and it will have to be just okay, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's what I think too. It's like if you keep on doing what you're doing, it's just going to go down. By making it very blunt, it will have its initial, like I said, so you can either kill yourself, which is one way to get him to be awake, right? That's kind of pretty dark, but that's what you're doing essentially by abusing yourself with food, making food a weapon against him.
Yeah.
Physically, you have symptoms of your body's is not doing well. Your immune system is not working very well, or it's working extreme.
Right.
Because that's what you've done to it, to hurt him. And so by making it quick and swift, which one's, go through the scenario, which one is going to be hardest on him? Which one's going to be the most harmful?
Well, I think for both of us, the slow back and forth trying to take control is the most harmful.
I would agree, because that's what you're doing.
Yeah. And that just, okay, here it is, you're done, I'm in, sorry, but that's the way it is, will be very uncomfortable for everyone for a shorter period of time.
Yes, because he's going to feel abandoned, rejected, like you took over. Yes, you're 80. Yes. Done. Yeah. There's, I don't know.
Well, it's just the truth of the matter. Like, you're 80. Can't change
Correct.
that.
Yes, like this isn't working. I can't either. You continue until you die, but I'm out. Or you retire, Dad, and move on. Forced retirement. This is what happens. You're forcing retirement.
Yep.
It's not like he's 60 and you're kicking him out. He's 80. And your mom, you're like, what are you waiting for? He's not removing himself.
Right. And the worst case scenario is that he says, no, you're fired.
Okay.
Yeah, and like, I don't really see that as a worst case scenario.
I know, so you're laughing because it's kind of funny. It's like, okay, Dad, good luck with that. That's fine. He can take it. It's his.
Right. Oh, it's like an anvil weight that has been lifted off of me. Like and a veil off of my eyes, and I see this so clearly, and it's really not as hard as I thought it would be, and as awful as I thought it would be. It's like you've got this huge bandage across you that you every day just lift a little bit of it up, or you just take it off and you're done. And it's going to sting for a little while.
Yeah, it is. It's the actual act of what you're about to do is going to be uncomfortable, but you have to look at, well, which one's more discomfortable, right? Continuing to do this or doing what we're doing. That's an important thing to be aware of too. It was like for me, I always go back to when I recovered And it was either committing suicide or leaving the religion. Committing suicide or going through divorce if I had to. Committing suicide. Everything was a relative to suicide. For me. And it was real. It was real.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking, well, the lesser of the pain that I would cause my parents is for me to leave the church. If I committed suicide, it would be lifelong heartache and pain and wondering what went wrong. I'm not going to, does that make sense? So to face my fears and cause damage to people around me was the best case scenario. It was so much better, and it was the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Just being true, just being truthful and being honest and being real and not beating around the bush. It's just like, this is not working for me. They can take it or leave it. And I know if it causes them pain that I just saved them a lot of pain. They don't even know that the alternative was suicide. So I am doing them a favor.
Right.
You're doing your dad a favor.
Yep.
He doesn't know it.
I was just going to say, and he doesn't know it.
Nope. That is important to see. You're doing him a favor. Because the alternative is not going well.
Yep.
You realize that you and I have had this...
Now the rain is gone.
About a year ago, I remember saying to you, what would it be like to get your dad out of business? And you were like, oh my God, that would be amazing.
And I couldn't do it though. I was so afraid of hurting him, and instead I was self-mutilating.
Yes. And out of resentment.
Your toes, but I'm going to cut mine off one at a time.
Yes, you asshole. Because I have to live through this shit. Because I don't want to hurt you.
And it's your fault I can't walk now.
Yes, it's your fault. It's your fault that I'm having angina. And my heart hurts. Oh! Yes, it is.
Amazing. And here I thought I didn't have anything to talk about today.
You say that every time.
Yeah, I know. I do. True story.
True story. Yeah, well, you knew there was something because you were overeating and it was obvious to you this week.
Right. Yeah.
And before you would have just had a diet to back up. You would have been on a diet this week and you wouldn't have been able to see any of it. Because you'd just been. Oh my
God, yes.
Because you would have been like, I'm just overeating because I just need to, and I'll fix it on Monday, and I'll go back to gluten-free and sugar-free and all that stuff, and then you would just think you have an eating disorder. I just haven't. I'm addicted to food, Robin. Let's talk about that. Let's just get below that thought right there. Do you see? To me, that is so enabling.
Oh God, yeah.
It's just like, don't talk about the issues. Let's not cover the problems that are underneath that.
Right.
And let's not talk about just the simplicity of body image. Let's not even go into that. Let's just say it's about the food. Let's demonize the food and let's give you a detox. Do you see where that goes?
Oh my gosh, yes. And this week, or like the last 2 weeks, the other avoidance behavior I've had is like listening to books. Mm-hmm. And I would tell myself when I was walking, I needed to shut this book off and just be with myself and delve into some of these uncomfortable feelings. No, I'll just listen to my book. Yeah.
Well, then you had a phone call with me and you're like, I don't need to talk to Robin. I'm good. I don't need to delve into things. You know what I learned in my recovery process is as soon as something comes up, you invite it in. Fix it when it occurs. When you have these issues, I learned in my recovery that when these issues present themselves, that's when you fix them. As the issue arises, you unravel it as it arises. You don't deny it, push it away, ignore it. It's like, I'm uncomfortable, let's get uncomfortable. You immediately go into discomfort. It's just something I learned. Why would you avoid discomfort when all it does is make it worse and you don't ever really figure, and then you end up spending a lot of your time trying to avoid that discomfort. The discomfort always comes back bigger, more magnified, the more you try to suppress it. Right? Yeah. Your resentment gets more resentable. You know, the damage you're doing to your body gets more damaging, all because you want to suppress this conversation. But what happens when we actually bring it out?
It's not as scary as you imagined it to be.
No, it's kind of like when we first started working and we were going through the body image layer of this. It's like when you look at what life will be like overweight, it's kind of no big deal.
Right.
When you remove the, the shame about it and the binging and the purging and the organizing and all that. When you remove the insanity, it's really physically, look at the physicality of it. It's not like living with, nausea every day. Could you imagine being nauseous every day? Every day living with nausea. That would suck.
Right.
Right. And so, yeah, like you said, it's like when you face it, your fear of facing it makes it catastrophized. And you feel like you can't handle it. I can't handle it. So you don't face it. You stay in hiding, Again, it goes back down to those lower states of survival where someone feels victimized and they don't think they can handle it. So you repress. You suppress and you hide and you avoid and you deny, and it creates depression, right? Because you don't think you can face your fear. I can't handle what I'm afraid of. And so when we actually face what you're afraid of, you realize I can handle that. And it wasn't that big of a deal. Why did I wait so long to do that? Because in doing that, it provided me what I needed to be aware of and the sense of capacity to move in the direction I need to go to make this better. Just by facing it. Face it. And that's what I was saying when I said that. One thing I learned through my recovery is that as soon as something comes up that makes me uncomfortable, I face it immediately. Why avoid it? It's like immediately I can resolve it if I just face it to understand it. What am I afraid of? Oh, there's fear. Well, what am I afraid of? Oh, I'm feeling angry. Why am I angry? What is this about? So you go into it open-minded and you go into those feelings. And by going into those feelings, you actually develop tolerance. You develop capacity. It's called emotional maturity. Emotionally strong. That I can handle these emotions. I can handle facing rejection. I can handle this because I'm aware that if I continue to suppress it and hide from it, that things are clearly worse. It's worse to not handle it. What I'm doing is worse than what I'm avoiding.
Yep.
So what it takes to avoid things, you learn that the emotion you're avoiding is actually easier than all of the work it takes to avoid it.
Right. Absolutely.
So everything you're doing to avoid this conversation is far worse than the conversation's going to be.
Yep.
That's why it feels so good. It's almost feeling liberated.
Yeah, that is absolutely the feeling.
Yeah, because what you're being asked to do is so much easier. It's like you immediately just got relief.
Yep.
By just saying, my dad's out of it. It's an executive decision. How easy is that? Oh, it's super easy.
I mean, he can disagree with it. He owns the company. He can fire me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's so much easier.
Yep.
All of what you just said is an easier situation.
Yeah, it is.
I know.
Instead of trying to manipulate him to get what I want or what I think is best for other people or...
No.
Yeah.
And you're trying to manipulate him through self-harm. He's gonna... No!
This Twix is for you, Dad!
You asshole, you're making me eat the Twix! You're making me eat it!
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's so funny.
It is.
It is, it's
Hilarious.
humorous. It's cute.
Oh. And if he'd listen to this, he'd say, what is wrong with you?
And you can go, well, Dad, the apple did not fall far from the tree. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have said that to my dad many occasions. Just so that you know, Dad, this apple did not fall far from you. And he giggles because he's like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I guess so.
All right. What? I'm excited.
I'm excited for you. Get shit done. I can't wait to talk to you again.
Yeah.
Because the next time I talk to you, either it's going to be, I don't know, Robin, I'm doing fine. I didn't need to talk today, but I guess we need, it's going to be the same thing. Because you scare out. I can't do it. Okay. We'll go keep on eating your Twix.
Very liberating.
Next time you have that impulse to overeat, just make sure you say it out loud. I'm going to eat this to hurt him.
Yeah. And then I'm going to laugh at myself.
Yeah, because you're going to say it's not doing anything. Because he's not actually corresponding with this. It's just like, it's not doing anything. That, I think, is important for you to see. That behavior is because there's a weird idea that he's going to feel bad about it.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to know that he did this to me. No, that's not going to happen. Because he didn't do it to you.
I don't know how many times I went to the pantry this morning and I was like, I was kind of hungry. And I would look at things and think, I'm not hungry for that, not for that, not for that. I go, Jesus, Michelle, obviously you're not very hungry. And walk away. And yeah, there's been so many times in the past month that I have eaten just to spite someone. Yeah. At my father.
Yeah. And who is it hurting?
Oh, me.
The body.
Yeah.
It's actually hurting the body. It's not hurting you.
Right.
It's hurting the body.
Yeah, right. And I could feel what I was doing to the body. And I knew I was harming my body. I mean, I could feel those changes and more aches and more harder to move
and it's his fault.
Yep. Gosh. Okay, I'm pretty excited about that.
Okay, cool. All right. I earned it today.